Hello and welcome to the second part of this special interview with Imran Khan, who many believe could be the next Prime Minister of Pakistan. What sort of relationship does he want with India? That's the key issue I shall tackle today. Imran Khan, if you do become the next Prime Minister of Pakistan, in what way will your India policy be different to the policy of the present government?
Well, firstly, it would be based on trust and mutual trust. At the moment, Pakistan doesn't trust India. India doesn't trust Pakistan. Here, there's a big perception that our water is being stolen in Balochistan. The Indian Secret Service is active with the BLA, Balochistan Liberation Organization. In India, the perception is any terrorist act is financed by Pakistan's ISI. So you can never have a relationship based on mistrust. I think the time has come to have a new relationship. And I believe that, if you can eliminate the roles of intelligence agencies, where two civilian governments can sit together and say, we'll resolve all our issues through dialogue. I think it's a way forward because the benefits of peace are enormous.
The Indian government will look for action on one front in particular. They believe that India is the subject of terror attacks launched from Pakistani soil. They haven't been fully satisfied by the handling of that issue by the present government. Can you assure them that you will tackle terror more effectively and you will be more reassuring about India's concerns?
Well, as a policy, if Tehreek-e-Insaf government comes to power, we will insist on there be no militant groups operating within Pakistan. Because, the world has changed. So the groups that were created during the Afghan Jihad, now this is now an outdated concept of having them as assets. Time has come to not only remove all militant groups, disarm them, but also a de-weaponization in Pakistan because it is causing massive problems within the country. So therefore, once that issue disappears, once there are no militant groups within Pakistan, I think that issue will disappear.
Let me press this like this. The LET was supposedly declared a militant group and proscribed way back in 2002. But it simply remorphed and reappeared as Jamaat-ul-Dawa and Falah Insaniyat, and it operates freely, as you know. Hafiz Saeed, its leader, regularly makes anti-India hate speeches. Will you put a stop to that?
Well, I again repeat that if there are no militant groups operating from within Pakistan, which should be our state policy, and as things stand today, Pakistan has no choice but to go this route.
So when you say no militant groups, does that specifically include not just LET, but also Jamaat-ul-Dawa, Falah Insaniyat, Jaish-e-Mohammed? In other words, those groups that target India?
Well, not just India. There are groups that are targeting people within Pakistan. We have a number of militant groups.
But you're not answering my question. The Indians will think you're evading it.
No. When I say that no militant groups, it means no militant groups.
Including Jamaat-ul-Dawa?
Exactly. There would not be any militant groups operating within Pakistan.
Can I ask you something?
How can I be more specific than that?
Would you name Jamaat-ul-Dawa, Falah Insaniyat and Hafiz Saeed and say that you'll put a check to these three people? Will you name them?
Look, I'm living in Pakistan. Pakistan at the moment is the most polarized country in the world. A governor gets shot, his assassin becomes a hero. There's no point in becoming a hero right now in this country where there's no rule of law. Life is very cheap here. So just let me make a policy statement. Don't just go into details. As a policy statement, it should answer your question. No militant groups operating from within Pakistan.
Let me raise a second concern that India has. They believe, and the Americans agree, and similarly believe, that the ISI has been involved in carrying out terror attacks against India, whether it's through the Haqqani group targeting the Indian embassy in Kabul, or whether it's through the LET targeting Mumbai in 2008. Will you rein in the ISI?
Well, again, in your last interview, I said, as the Prime Minister of a country, where the responsibility lies, so should the authority be with me. It's not going to happen that here's me holding responsibility and some group is operating independently, whether it's ISI or any other group. So the answer is, ISI and the army would be under a civilian government control. And if I can't do it, I'd much rather resign. But if I take responsibility, it would mean that whatever policies made by our cabinet will have to be enforced at every section, with every institution. Now, when you come to Afghanistan, I just have one tiny comment to make. To blame Pakistan, where 140,000 troops of the United States and NATO have failed, the greatest military machine ever has failed, and to blame a few thousand Haqqani group from Pakistan, not allowing them to win in Afghanistan, not only is this completely not plausible, but it's defying history. Afghans have never accepted foreign invaders.
I take the point you're making about Afghanistan, but that's a bit of a side issue in the subject of India-Pakistan relations. Yeah. The point I want to underline by repeating is that Imran Khan as Prime Minister will be the boss not just of the army, but specifically of the ISI, and the ISI will thereafter not be involved in targeting India in terms of terror.
But ISI and army are the same thing.
So you will stop it completely?
I'm saying that if I, as the Prime Minister, elected Prime Minister who has the mandate of the people, if every institution is not under the civilian government, I'd much rather resign. Remember, remember, don't confuse me with these other people who do not come to power to govern. They're all making money, and they allow different groups to operate.
The Indian people are hearing you as you speak tonight. They've known you as a cricketer. They've admired you. Some have even loved you. Is this a promise you're making them?
I'm not only making a promise to the Indian people, I think I'm making a promise to anyone. The biggest problem the United States faces, they worry about terrorism from Pakistani soil. It's not just India who's worried. If I cannot stop terrorism from Pakistani soil, I'd rather not be the Prime Minister.
And that is the promise you're making the Indian people tonight, here and now?
To every people, but not just Indian people.
But the Indians are watching.
At the moment, the Afghans are complaining. The Europeans, the Americans, everyone, any terrorism is blamed on Pakistan.
But tonight, you're talking to an Indian audience, and the promise you're making the Indian people is that if you become Prime Minister, there will be no terror attacks on India launched from Pakistani soil.
And I would like to think that the Indians would also guarantee us that we should have no problems either in Balochistan, or there's some areas where Indian agencies are blamed.
Absolutely.
So we should base our relationship on trust, and when I guarantee them, I will stand by it.
All right. Let's then come to the second tricky issue that bedevils India-Pakistan relations, Kashmir. Is it a core issue for Imran Khan?
It's a core issue because without Kashmir, you will always have a possibility of going back to square one, no matter how much confidence building measures you have. If something happens in Kashmir, it will have, or because of Kashmir, we don't know. Maybe something happens from within Kashmir in India, some sort of terrorist attack. I'm scared that, like Mumbai, suddenly whatever happens comes back to square one.
But on Kashmir, therefore, you are very similar to the people who will have by then become your predecessors. You're similar to Zardari Gilani, you're similar to Musharraf. They all see it as a core issue, so do you.
It's the only issue. What else is stopping us?
In which case, let me ask you a question.
What else is stopping us from getting closer?
You may be right. Let me therefore ask you a question. You must have thought about, if you hope to become Prime Minister in 15 months' time, do you have a solution to the Kashmir problem?
Well, whatever the solution is, first of all, it should not be enforced through militancy. So whatever policy we have, it should be political dialogue. And I also believe that we should have other confidence-building measures on the way. We should have trade. We should have more linkages, people-to-people contact. And I thought at one point we were getting very close. When the Indian team came here, I think 2005 or 6, I've never seen two countries as close as that. So it's very sad that Mumbai we were back to square one. So therefore, I would like to think that we would deal with the Kashmir issue in a more civilized way. I would like to think that India would sort of start, if it has confidence that there's no militancy coming from Pakistan, it would start withdrawing its army from Kashmir.
I'm very interested in what you're saying about building trust, building confidence. It reminds me of something President Zardari said to this very program, Devil's Advocate, 3 years ago. He said, India and Pakistan should try and resolve the Kashmir issue as India and China are seeking to resolve their border dispute. He said, put it aside on the back burner for a later, wiser generation to sort out, and in the meantime, build confidence and trust in each other by boosting trade, by boosting confidence measures like playing cricket. Then, 10 years later, the new atmosphere will help solve Kashmir. Do you share that line of thinking?
I certainly agree with that line of thinking. I think that the more confidence we build with each other, the more trade we have, the more trust we develop. And the moment military and or militancy or intelligence agencies' roles disappear and more we solve our issues on the dialogue table, that's the only way forward.
This will be hugely reassuring to Indian ears, but something that they will pick out is one of your closest advisors is Shireen Mazari, who is famous for being hostile to India. To what extent will she determine or influence your attitude to India?
Well, look, in a political party, you have all sorts of people. All sorts of views come in. But basically, you know, a party has sort of right and leftists and all sorts of hawks and doves. But the policy of the party will be based on dialogue. The objection, you know, a lot of people in Pakistan have is about 600,000 or 700,000 Indian troops in the valley. And what that does is, my party as a whole objects to military anywhere. Solving issues through military has failed everywhere. Pakistan has an experience. We failed in East Pakistan, our operations were counterproductive. Operations in Balochistan, counterproductive. In FATA, counterproductive. Americans have failed in Afghanistan. And if India thinks it's going to solve this issue for 20 years by having so many soldiers there, it's counterproductive.
You're referring to something you said in your rally in Lahore on the 30th of October, where you spoke not just about the presence of Indian soldiers in Kashmir, but you also called upon India to withdraw them. To many in India, that came across as an incongruous remark. Some were disheartened by it, some disliked it. How would you explain it to them?
Well, but I say the same thing about Pakistani soldiers. Withdraw them from tribal areas. This is not the answer. The solution does not lie in military operations. So what I would say to Indians is, if I was an Indian, I would be telling my government that this is not the solution. I would solve our problems through political dialogue. And if there's worry about militancy from Pakistan, yes, as a Pakistani, we would guarantee there's no militancy from that side. Because whenever there's army in civilian areas, you will have massive human rights violation, and it always is counterproductive.
I take your explanation. Many in India will hear it and note it. But the one thing I want to go back to is Pakistan's India policy, when and if you become Prime Minister, will be decided by Imran Khan, not by advisors like Shireen Mazari or other people whose views may differ from yours. You will decide it, just as you will decide relations with the Pakistan Army, which you told me about earlier.
Look, Shireen Mazari is a nationalist. You will always have, like in India, your cabinet, you will have different types of views. But always, whenever a view is discussed and debated, it always comes out much better. This is the beauty of democracy.
But at the end of the day, will the policy be Imran Khan's policy or would it be Shireen Mazari's?
Imran Khan has never been anyone's puppet, ever.
So you will be the man who calls the shots in India relations?
The only captain who resigned twice because he was not being allowed to have his own policy.
And you will be the captain of state in the fullest sense of the term when you become Prime Minister?
I don't need to be the Prime Minister otherwise.
Now, something else that was picked on when you did that speech in Lahore and remarked upon by the Hindu newspaper is that when you spoke about Kashmir, you didn't use the prefix Indian occupied. The Hindu also said that you didn't talk about liberating Kashmir. Was that deliberate and significant, or was it accidental and a mistake? My whole thinking is about human beings. I think that any country, any area that is which is ruled by army, which is where there's an army operation going on, is always going to be in a mess. And so I'm really anti-military operations. And I have from day one opposed all military operations, which is why I was called pro-Taliban. And in Kashmir, I know what is happening to the people of Kashmir. You cannot have hundreds of thousands of troops in an area and think
that there'll be not violations of human rights. Remember, Army's job is never, it never succeeds in civilian areas.
But you sidestepped the question I asked. I pointed out that the Hindu remarked on the fact that you didn't use the prefix Indian occupied when you spoke about Kashmir. Was that deliberate or was it a mistake?
Because I think it's about rights of Kashmiri people. It's not about
so it was
liberating or anything. It's about whatever the people of Kashmir decide. That should be it now. It's not, I do not any longer consider it to be some sort of a territorial dispute. I think it's more a human rights issue now.
So you see it in human rights terms, not as a territorial dispute.
Yeah.
That's why you didn't use the prefix India occupied.
Yeah.
Imran Khan, let's take a break at that point. When we come back, I want to talk to you about your relationship with America and how you view Afghanistan. That's in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and the last part of this special two-part interview with Imran Khan. Let's come briefly to the relationship you'd have with America. America has been historically Pakistan's single most important ally, yet you're widely perceived to be anti-American. What sort of relationship would you have with America?
As I said in the speech, we want to be friends of the US, but we don't want to be slaves. At the moment, we are being treated as a hired gun. It's deeply offensive to me as a Pakistani, and not just to me, everyone. People crave for dignity and self-respect. Imagine what you Indians would respond to if your government was being perceived as a puppet government of any other country. So therefore, friends, yes, but not what is happening right now. They're saying we're paying you money and go and do more and bomb your people. And apart from anything else, it's totally counterproductive.
After America leaves, how do you view India's relationship with Afghanistan? Do you see it as a threat to Pakistan, or are you happy for India to be a close friend and near neighbor of Afghanistan?
Well, all depends how India and Pakistan, how our relationship evolves. If it is on friendly basis, on mutual trust, it wouldn't matter then. But if it's perceived as it is right now by our military establishment, which is basically controlling the policy, if it's perceived to be hostile, they will always be scared being squeezed from two fronts.
Can you or do you look upon Afghanistan as strategic depth for Pakistan?
I don't think so. I think this is this policy is wrong specifically because they don't understand the Afghan mindset. Afghans have never been controlled by anyone. They are the most independent-minded people, which is why they fought every foreign occupation. Anyone who tries to control them will fail.
So if India has good political, good trade relations, that will not worry Imran Khan as Prime Minister?
Absolutely not. It would not worry me if we have good relationships with India. Everything, trade is mutually beneficial to everyone.
Would you go so far as to give India trade access by land to Afghanistan across Pakistan, something that's been denied and which costs the Afghan people, not just Indian traders?
But I think all these things have to be dealt with holistically. You know, everything, we have to sit down, the two countries, and deal with all the problems, with issues with
But you have an open mind on this.
But yes, obviously. Listen, if India and Pakistan develop a good relationship as friendly neighbors, it will be beneficial to both the countries, to the subcontinent. And so therefore, all these issues will then fall into place.
So much of what you're saying about the relationship you want with India seems to hinge upon your ability as Imran Khan to reach out to the Indian people and convince them of your sincerity and to be able to carry Pakistan behind you as you do it. Once again, do you believe in yourself sufficiently to be able to carry off something that for 60 years hasn't happened?
Well, I can give my best shot. I can fight to the last ball. We can only try. Look, human beings can only try. Success sometimes I think is not in our hands, it's in the hands of the Almighty. So I can say that I will give it my best shot.
Most people in India say that if there is a Prime Minister who will come to power in Pakistan, who understands India and has a lot of respect in India, then it has to be Imran Khan. Once again, do you think you might be the man who can change India-Pakistan relations in a way no other predecessors had?
Well, I pray to the Almighty that that's the case, because I, for one, have received so much love in India. I grew up hating India because I grew up in Lahore and there was so much, the massacres of 1947 and so much bloodshed and anger. But as I started touring India, I got such love and friendship there that all this disappeared. And then my closest friend, who you also know, Vikram, was Indian. So we became very close. So as time passed, I realized that, you know, there's so much, we have a similar history, there's so much in culture, there's so much similar, compared to the Western countries, where there's so much we have in common, and above all, there is so much the two people of the two countries get benefit from if we have a civilized relationship.
And this will be the vision that will guide your policy to India?
Absolutely. I have no prejudice against any country, and more specifically India.
Imran Khan, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.